Welcome back to Talkin Shop with ShopSabre. I am Brandon Bombardo, your host. We are here live at IWF. Really excited today. We got our episode featuring April Wilkerson. April, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to IWF.
Today I will be the co-host.
Yeah, you're the co-host. You can be the host today. I mean, at this point, I'll let you take over. People want to hear you talk more than me. Yeah, so you flew in yesterday, correct?
Yep.
Do you have any time to walk around the show at all?
No, not yet. This is my first few minutes.
Yeah, made it right over here, and it's hopping. It's busy.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know you had a new machine. This is very surprising.
Yeah.
I've already checked it out. I am highly impressed.
Yeah, it's our new IS-A. Really excited about it. For everybody watching on video, you can see it behind us. It's the first auto load, auto unload machine by ShopSabre, and still made in America, which is something we love. And it's full ball screw driven still, which is what kind of makes it unique. It stands out as a full ball screw driven machine, still at a sub 120 price point, which is just something that we're really proud of, to be able to bring a load unload feature at that price point. So yeah, what's your first thoughts, I guess?
I walked up and I was like, what is this? Is this an outfeed table? How do they get over here? And then, because y'all don't have the infeed.
Yeah.
And so then Alex was walking me through, suction cups will feed on the material.
Yeah.
And then I was like, now y'all just need to create a robot that will vacuum the bed for you. Yeah. He goes, no, that's also built in.
Yep.
So then he walks me through, it's pushing the material forward, vacuuming the bed, and bringing along the new material to drop onto the bed as it's doing it. Like, it's brilliant. I'm very impressed.
Love it, thank you. So you have two of them, obviously.
Yeah.
You have the Fave 3 on your latest one.
I do.
Now that you've had some time to run it, tell us about the Fave 3. What do you think?
Oh, it's incredible. I was talking about the innovation. I mean, because the first one that I have, I thought it can't get better than this. I mean, maybe a little bit tweaks and peaks here, but it's crazy the innovation between, I think it's a 2-year time difference that you guys looked at it and were like, this can be better. And then even how stocky all of the top carriage is. Definitely the Fave 3, the arsenal in the back even increasing. Yeah. And then obviously the valves going to metal is top. But it's like even those little changes, it's crazy how much more efficient my shop can run because of them. And so, and again, I just look at the bigger picture of I don't know if you watch the interviews that I do talking about ShopSabre, but I feel like since partnering with you guys, I'm not only in good hands right now, but also the entire time that I'm running the ShopSabres, even in the future. Right. And especially then having firsthand experience on seeing not even problems, but then just, again, the innovation between the first machine and then the second machine that I got. I'm like, gosh, this is just always going to get better, Yeah. So then I come in and I see this. Y'all are solving so many problems. I know it's going to be backed by y'all's quality. So, yeah it's cool.
Yeah, we were talking about my dad a little bit before we went on here, and I was saying, I always refer to him as JB. JB, he always told me growing up. He said, if you take care of the people, the rest of it takes care of itself. And I believe that's why we do what we do with it, because as you said, in a 2-year span, we just made upgrades because we hear what people are saying. And it's, I want more tool capacity, or man, I wish I could change tools a little quicker, which is where the Fave 3 came from, or the brass ball valves. We heard people having problems with the plastic ones, and it's like, rather than just, well, it works, let it go.
Exactly.
We're always innovating, and it's the same thing with this. The reason for the IS-A was we have so many customers, and we have great customers that run our IS, but they get to that point where they're like, okay, what's next? I outgrew the production capabilities of the IS. What can you do for me? And we didn't really have that answer. It was kind of, they reached the peak, if you will. And we were unfortunately watching customers have to leave us to satisfy their own business. And the problem was then they do that, and then I'm getting the calls that they're upset that the support's not what they had before, the software doesn't work the way they're used to. And we realize we're losing customers that really want to be with us still. And so that's where the idea of the IS-A was, enough people telling us, I need that next level, but I don't want to leave. So it's like, give them a reason to stay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was a big thought process behind that. Now, you're in town for a short stay, correct?
Yeah, I'll leave this evening.
This evening, okay. Yeah. You're going to get time to walk around, you think, after?
Oh, yeah, at least this hall. I mean, there's so many, there were 3 halls. Halls, I'll at least walk around this hall.
What's next for you? I guess. What are you guys? What do you got in the works? Anything fun?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I just bought a new piece of land that I'm gonna probably build about 10 houses on, 10 little 1-1s, and they're all gonna be unique and different. I'll probably video at least 3 of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, I always always have this idea of designing something that's all CNC built, or at least the vast majority of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, right now I'm still in the design, figuring it out stage.
That's cool.
So, but it's on the horizon. Come February, I'm going to be building a house.
That's super awesome.
Maybe multiples.
That's exciting. That sounds like a big project. I mean, that's a lot.
Well, what's interesting is, I mean, I have 4 businesses. So I have Wilkerson, which is YouTube, building my own stuff and then showing people how to do it. I have my commercial CNC shop where I'm running the 2 ShopSabres. And so those, I'm always like bringing on new clients. But I do a lot of like big bulk production. And then now I've gotten into cabinetry. So now I'm looking at this as far as like cabinetry goes. And then I have an indoor golf simulator business, which, is not anything like my other 2 businesses. And then I've just started a 10-acre RV park, which again is not like any of the others. So and now I guess if you throw rental property in it, I have my hands in a lot of different pies. So,
awesome.
But typically when people ask me, what do you have next? I always answer towards like the Wilker side on what is it I'm personally going to be building and then showing people.
Oh, that's cool.
But like in all my businesses, I have like a different step for each one. Actually, today is my 1-year anniversary for opening up Divots, my indoor golf sim business.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I was just going to ask you that. So golf simulator Divots, right?
Yeah, Divots.
So what got you into doing golf simulator? That's like you said, it's kind of a stretch from where you have been. What was the direction?
It's kind of like you and going to this machine. I just lean into anything that's like very like all my new directions have been very organic.
Yeah.
And so I started the woodshed. I bought the building. It was a commercial building that used to be an auction house. I bought it in 2020 January, and then the world shut down in March.
Right.
And then but I had just renovated the 7,000 square foot shop. Some of it to be a retail section, the other 5,000 square feet to be a CNC shop. So that retail section, the world shut down. I didn't have any foot traffic for the entirety of COVID. And so I just ignored it while developing the shop during COVID, which is actually a booming part for US-based manufacturing.
Right.
And then so after the pandemic, during the pandemic, I got into golf. So then afterwards, I was looking at the retail section being like, well, I guess now I can put effort into this. But then I was like, do I want to? At that point, I had gotten into golf. My closest golf course is 40 minutes away. Wow. And I was like, I wonder if I can do one of those cool indoor golf places because I didn't have anyone near me. And then with me being a carpenter, I just went and like built some bays and I was like, we'll see if the area can handle it. The area loves it. And so, I don't have to change directions basically.
That is kind of like, that is like the perfect example of what business owners do. They just are always thinking of solving problems.
Yeah.
And like you said, something you love, golf, and it's solving a problem. There's nothing close by. Let's make something close by. And
well, it's that need. You know what I mean? That need on like what are people asking for? And then if people aren't like if you're not in touch with what people are asking for, then I lean into what is it that I need.
Right.
And really, truthfully, I don't look like all my decisions in my entire life, even down to what I build next. It always comes down to I use myself as a gauge. Yeah. And I feel like I'm a pretty average person. Yeah. So I'm like, if I need it or want it, then more than likely other people do as well.
Right.
Yeah. So then you guys, same with the innovation behind this machine. Yeah. It's like, what could we do with all of that? Especially since you already have the resources. I had the building, I have the ability to design it, and then I have the ability to build it. Right. So then why not just try it? You guys have the same thing. You have the tools, you just apply it towards that new direction, and then boom, a whole new thing is created.
Exactly. And that's what I love is just that idea of like solving your own problems. And they turn into, well, if I have that problem, how many other people have it?
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with like the dust skirt stuff. When we came out with our first dust skirt for the machines, like when we had the dust dock.
Yes.
The whole idea of the dust dock was my brother one day frustrated in the shop, sweeping up the floor every day. And he's like, you know what? There's got to be a better way to collect dust. And so my brother just started coming up with a need for himself or a solution for himself, for his own need. And it worked. And we ran it in the shop. And then my brother was finally like, if I had this problem, somebody else out there does too.
Yeah.
And we released that dust dock and it went crazy.
Yeah.
And then now it's just funny. We were thinking about it at the show. We were walking around. How much different dust collection looks on every CNC machine since changing it. Like you went to these shows, 10 years ago, everybody's dust collection was the same. It just didn't work. I mean, everybody's booths were a mess. There was dust everywhere. And now you walk around and a lot of the booths are a lot cleaner than they ever were. Yeah. A lot less dust flying around. It's just like you start solving needs and it just it transforms an entire industry. Yeah. So, no, that's cool. That's what I love to hear is like the golf simulator thing is just, people think of it as like it's so far out there, but it's really not. It's kind of falling in line with your mindset of
Yeah.
What's next? What am I going to do?
Well, that's the great thing about building. Like you can apply it into whatever. Like I got into kayaking, so I weld my own trailer and I build my own dry docking station. I built my own whatever, even ice chest speaker. Like awesome. If you're a builder, you can apply that into whatever niche you get into. You know, golfing, even CNCs. That whole mentality of you just figure out what you don't know, and then until you achieve what you're trying to create.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of business owners that can learn from that, is that I think a lot of people's biggest constraint in their business is themselves. You know, it's not that the work doesn't exist. It's just sometimes they get so set in that this is how I do it, that they're not willing to step outside of their comfort zone and go, yeah, I don't know it, or I've never done it, but I can figure it out. You know, it's like, I think a lot of business owners downplay their capabilities. You know, we hear it a lot of times at CNC. Guys who've been running shops for 20 years and they're still cutting by hand. And they're like, well, I don't know if I could do it. And I'm like, you didn't know how to cut with a saw at one point. You had to teach yourself how to do what you're doing today. You weren't an expert in 20 years ago. It takes you time. And I said, the first step is putting the confidence in yourself to do it and investing. And obviously you were the same way. You started with a CNC many, many years ago, wasn't a ShopSabre. And it doesn't always start as what it's going to be, but it's that you got to start somewhere and start taking that step so it gets to that next level.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there's a few things there that are really difficult. One is people who succeed at it, like me at this point, people see that, oh, you have all of these diversity things. You like I'm self-taught in almost everything I do, and I guess. Well, I make it look easy, maybe, is the feedback that I hear. But it's not easy. Like, it's not that I'm fearless. It's not that I don't feel the intimidation. It's not that I don't fail. It's not that I don't make mistakes. It's just I have become very good at pushing through that uncomfortability feeling anyways. And also, it's not that it feels good to not be, like, when a project doesn't work out or I make a mistake or just something flat out fails. Like my retail section. I guess you can view that as a failure. I did it at the wrong time. I had no idea the pandemic was coming. But instead of, like, dwelling in that, I just push it aside and I focus on something that I can move forward, which is the CNC shop. I see an opportunity, I pounce on it, and I think, I'll think about that later. It was 2 years, and that's just okay, right? But then once I do, now you put all of the pieces. I put all the pieces on the table, and then I just start rearranging it, right? It's not that it's easy. It's just I take the time, as if you were learning, like what you said, learning a brand new sport. It's going to take you a while if you want to get into golf. Picking it up to being good at it. Then from good to expert is going to be even harder and a much longer period. Apply that to learning a new business or pivoting. Like you have to, if you expect that, then you won't be discouraged whenever it's hard or it doesn't work a first few times, right? But then there's also this variable of learning, like, what to put your effort into. Like that's a huge range. Like it's not like, so on my CNC shop, whenever I very first started a CNC shop, I did everything. I said, I will cut, I will assemble, I will finish, I will fulfill. And I had this huge plethora of services that I would offer. And also, looking back, I think that's okay, because then it allowed me to see what the appetite was of my clientele, and then I could like ebb and flow and shift into it. But now that I'm 4 years into it, I refined it to only cutting. So I've like chosen my specialty, but it's like me putting my effort into growing things outside of my CNC shop, such as divots or this RV park. Like that's okay for the diversification. But now I've learned that diversifying my CNC shop is not for me, right? Because it's like, I need to specialize and zero in my focus here, but then that doesn't mean that I can't do something outside of myself over here. And I guess that's one of the variables as well that makes it work, is all of these other things that I'm doing outside of my CNC shop, I have somebody else managing. I'm not trying to be at the helm of the divots or my RV park, right? So it's like there's a few key decisions that make this formula work. And what's even more confusing and abstract for people is that just because it worked for me doesn't mean that it couldn't work for them. Like I live in the country, so finding a range of skill sets to be able to offer assembly or finishing is not good for my shop, but it might be good for somebody else if they have access to that. Or maybe what they do is they open up 4 different streams of revenue, and then they find a really good finisher.
Yep.
And then maybe they lean into cut and finishing alone
Yes.
and cut everything else out. Like, it's kind of confusing because people really want like a straightforward answer on
Right.
how do I be successful.
Yep.
But the truth is that there's so many different ways that it could
Right.
work, but you have to have this like kind of balance between flexibility, comfortability of maybe it not working, and then pivoting to a new direction should it not be working.
Right.
Is that
Yeah, and everything you're saying makes sense because it's the truth. Like, I think that's exactly, everybody wants like the cheat sheet, right?
Yes.
Like, it's this cookie cutter, you do this and you're successful.
yes.
But it just doesn't exist. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's story is
I
different.
wish it did. I wish
Yeah.
I could just give them the formula
Right.
though.
And I always say, like, if that formula existed, we'd all write it down, we'd all have it, and somebody out there be a millionaire because they'd write a book about it and you just follow it and everybody be millionaires,
Yeah.
right? But it just doesn't work that way. Like, I think the what you said that resonates the most to me is going from what people view as failures to the next thing.
Yeah.
So many people, they dwell on that failure or that hurdle
Yeah.
that that's what derails them. It's not the failure, and they blame the failure because the failure is what slowed them down. But they're not willing to realize it's okay. Just
Yeah.
step past it, find what else you have going for you, what is working, put your time and energy into that, come back,
Yeah.
revisit it. But I think a lot of people, they get, admittedly, I think of myself, there's times when you get stuck and something challenges you, and then you get so bullheaded that you're like, I'm not gonna give up on this, you know? When you know better and you're like, I should step away right now, but you just keep like burying yourself into it until eventually you're like, I should have stepped away 2 years ago or a year ago and focused here and then come back to it. And sometimes you take the hard road
Yeah.
and you end up in the same spot, but it was way harder than it needed to be because the answer was right in front of you. But you either let fear or you let, you know, me in my case, being bullheaded sometimes, get in your way and you're just like, I can't step out of the way to just go do the other thing. And so I think that's the big thing is understanding not everything is a success, but it's how you view it. Just because I didn't have a successful launch on something or I didn't have a successful outcome immediately doesn't mean it won't be successful one day.
Yeah.
It just means today it wasn't right. The market wasn't right. As you said, who could have envisioned that the pandemic was coming?
Yeah.
It just wasn't the right timing for that. I bet if you did it today and you put your energy into it, it'd be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like you found a better way to use your space now, and that's awesome. I mean, Divot sounds like it's more fun for you as well. It sounds like it's something you're passionate about. So.
I'm so happy I was able to like make that pivot,
Yep.
and it turned out to be the best thing.
Yeah.
Well, who knows how the retail section would have worked? Like what you said, I'm sure it would have actually been fine had the pandemic not happened. But I love the route that I ended up at. But I always tell people, like, everybody always loves, especially now that I'm 10 years into it,
Yeah.
and I have a shop full of tools, and I have employees, and I have experience. They're always like, oh yeah, it's easy for you because of these variables.
Right.
But it's like, go back. I'm self-taught.
Yeah.
I had a belt sander and a drill, and I
Yep.
still achieved what it is that I set out to
Correct.
achieve. It's always like the number one tool you can put in your toolbox will always be resourcefulness.
Right.
Because then, regardless if you're in the situation where you're trying to figure out how to make a failing retail section work, or how to figure out how to learn the CNC software, or like whatever it is, whatever you're trying to figure out, if you have resourcefulness and that ability to pivot and be flexible and to try,
Yep.
and then to accept it maybe not working out, then you'll be golden.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's exactly it's that resourcefulness is the key to it all. Like
Yes.
finding people like I have a phrase I say a lot on this podcast that I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. Like I'm okay with not being the smart. I try to put people
Yes.
around me who are smarter than me. Like, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, I am completely okay with learning from other people because they have put their time and energy into areas that I didn't. And so rather than me
Or
trying to
even
be
if they did,
Yeah.
they like who knows everything.
Right.
So that like ego that some
Yeah.
people have
Yeah.
on like, no, I'm actually like, I consider myself a professional in a few different categories.
Right.
But if you put me even against an amateur
Yeah.
or with an amateur, I'm not above
Yeah.
thinking I can learn something from them.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Especially with technology advancing so quickly and new
Right.
things coming out all the time.
Yep.
I can learn, like, I'm a professional social media person,
Yep.
and I learned a crap load of things all the time from
Yeah.
people who just started because they're like new eyes on it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so it's like, now take that against every single category you can possibly think of,
Right.
and like reduce like reduce the ego. You can always be learning something and improving yourself regardless of it. But then there is this balance of people who like completely have spent their time specializing in something else that I haven't, right? I can absolutely learn something from them if I will allow that. But then you can also learn it from people who are at the same category as you.
I've learned things from people in all kinds of, you know, different environments. And I always use our social media as an example. I've been doing our social media for years. And I did it because I had to. Nobody else in the company was going to do it when my dad was running it. And it's like, my dad wasn't going to figure, he didn't care. So I'm like, I'll do social media. Self-taught. And then guys like Alex, who's behind the camera right now, but Alex and Hunter and the guys from our group, they come in and they're like, yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, that's genius. Why, you know, like, I've never thought of that. Why haven't I, you know, I don't have the resource that way. You guys have, show me how to do it. You know, like, I'm not here to tell them how to do their job. We hired you for a reason. You got some skills. Like, I want to let you use it. And I think that's one thing that you see with a lot of managers, leaders, business owners is sometimes they get in the way of their people. Let your people flourish. Let them do what they're good at. And you don't have to be the person that shows them how to do everything. Sometimes they're going to show you how to do something that you never thought of. And it's like, it's okay to take a step back. And that's what I love about like CNC is you get this sense of craftsmanship about, okay, I can build it by hand. But then you meet somebody who does it with CNC and it's like, I've been doing it way harder than I had to for so long. And it's not any worse than what I expect, right? Is it the satisfaction of doing it by hand? Maybe not, but it's way faster, way more profitable. And now I can put my time and energy into something that does require that it can't be done with a CNC. You know, there's certain things that you just still have to do by hand. I'd rather put my energy there and automate the things that I can't.
So I can't stand that argument of people being like, oh, but you're taking all the fun out of it. It's like, I don't know, like I think that's very narrow-minded thinking on that person's part, because it's like people get different, everybody has a different motivation. Some people's motivation comes from the process. Mine doesn't, though.
There's mine.
My motivation comes from wanting the end product and then getting it, but me making it. And so for me, using the CNC to get my end product, it fulfills my needs. And like for the people on this side that get that fulfillment or motivation from the process, they don't understand that. And it's just like, I think everybody needs to open their mind up and realize that we're all different and we're all trying. Like, we have all different check systems, right? And the CNCs check my box. I get the end product. I had input on the design. I had to still, like, it still takes engineering and familiarity with tooling and material. I mean, there's so much that still goes into it. I get the same reward out of it for me. And if it doesn't for you, then that's okay. But please stop talking shit.
And that's exactly it. I love that, because that's how I feel too. Like, I hear so many people that are like, well, they didn't really build it. And I'm like, that's not true. Like, I actually had that argument with somebody recently that I just said, you know what? Some people that would never have tried that are now trying it because of the CNC. And so, like, while maybe for you it doesn't fit that same, but for me, I feel the satisfaction, especially being in this industry and selling the machines, that I'm bringing people into an industry they otherwise would have shied away from.
Absolutely.
So, like, that's what I love about it. So I agree. Like, no reason to talk shit about it. Like, you know, to each their own.
Yeah, you want to be a traditionalist? That's just fine. You want to be a hand tool only? That's just fine. You want to be a power tool hybrid user? That's just fine. Like, at the end of the day, what always has confused me from the start of getting into making and being like on a digital platform visible to everybody is the willingness for people to say something negative about somebody using their time and their hands to build something. It's like, what does it matter what the process is? How do you find something negative in that? You're just a negative Nancy. And then it just bounces right off of me. Right?
I'm the same way. I just don't understand that. I try to be a really positive person in life in general. And again, I have my moments. I'm just like any other human being that you have your bad days. But I always talk about how, like, I start every day with a positive motivational quote. And I'm really like looking for the positive, even in the negative moments, like, what's the positive thing that came out of it? And again, like you said, the internet, I do a segment on this podcast a lot of times. I won't be doing it this week because we're at the show, but I do a segment called The Internet is Broken. And I just like showcase a comment or something on the internet, not necessarily related to us, but just on the internet, of somebody just saying something that's just like, it's unnecessary, you know? And it's like, the internet's so full of people that are willing to just, rather than like congratulate somebody on their successes, they're so quick to like, oh, but you did it wrong, or you did that. Like, I got a buddy of mine, the story I like to tell is we went racing 2 years ago, like a car race, and he crashed. he flipped over, had this wild ride. It was really wild, and crashes over. And the first comment on the internet was how he crashed wrong, basically. Like they critiqued the way he crashed. And he's like, I can't even crash right, you know? And we were just joking about it because it's like, even in something like that where it's like, he didn't want to crash, but they're going to still critique him on how it happened. Like, okay, well, next time I'll try to crash better for you, you know? And it's like, the internet's full of that. And like you said, you got to just kind of look past it and find the positive. Like anybody who builds something on a CNC, good for you. I mean, I am glad to see you achieving something that you went after. And the people wwho didn't use a CNC and still achieve something great, good for you too. Because it takes a whole lot of energy in either case to accomplish something.
Well, and like also it's a starting point, like what you said, and maybe these people advance into making things by hand afterwards, or maybe they don't. Who cares, right? But it's just like getting that in my head, empowering people who have the urge to build something, giving them the tool, and then leaning into, would using a lathe be more satisfying? Would using power tools? Would using hand tools? Would using technology? Like, who cares if you get them that niche and then empower them to go like down that path, right? So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, no,
I think I went off on a tangent. I think you were taking it somewhere else, but I was like, no, we need to talk about this.
I like it. Let's talk about it. No, that's what this podcast is about, though. Because I'm sure there's somebody listening right now that feels the same way. You know, and that's what I love. It's real talk. You know, this is how we feel and this is who we are. And maybe you don't agree with us, but that's okay too. You know, we're fine with that. But yeah, like I said, I mean, it's been fun having here at IWF. Obviously, a lot going on right now. So I think we're going to get back at it and keep walking around the booth. But I guess before we wrap it up, anything else that you want to talk to the listeners about, or anything you want to share? Any other stories?
No.
I think I got them all, huh? So that's good. Well, like I said, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Obviously, next week we'll be back with another episode back at the shop. But with that, I'm Brandon.
I'm April.
Thanks for talking shop with ShopSabre.